Hello everyone, welcome in. This video is going to be done a little different than I usually do. Usually I try to just bring you facts, deliver it concisely, and leave up to your opinion what you might find from those facts. Sometimes I'll tell you what I believe from the stuff that I've gathered. This video on the eve of trial for Richard Allen is a lot, I don't know, it's a little more therapeutic for me, I guess I'd say. I am extremely disturbed by this case and, the facts surrounding it. I don't, I usually will clip everything up, try and make it presentable. I'm just gonna pour my heart out into this one and talk about what I feel, as I am extremely nervous that trial starts tomorrow. There's another trial for a man named Cain Velasquez. The sentencing is tomorrow as well, October 18th, the beginning of Richard Allen's trial and the sentencing of Cain Velasquez, who I also have extreme hope for true justice to be served in that case. And I really hope Cain Velasquez doesn't get any time for his alleged crimes that he pled no contest to. So, as you can probably tell, I am just a little shook up by all of this. I did try to still present you guys with some, a little bit of information to back up what I'm going to be ranting about here. And that is, I know a lot of people have talked about the hair being a big deal in the Richard Allen case, that they found another hair. I'm not shocked by that. I and it's kind of a catch-22 for me, because the rules of the trial are the defense's hands are tied about entering third-party evidence, or the fact that there could be other people involved in this crime, to put it in layman's terms. So who cares about the hair? They're not even allowed to bring up anything else that shows that there was clearly other people involved in this, in my opinion. Now, I'm not trying to be negative on the hair, but I would like to point out the extreme inconsistency in the state's argument about the 60 plus confessions that Richard Allen made. When it comes to these confessions, they were made over the time span that Richard Allen was also being administered a drug called Haldol, or Halperdol for the longer term. So when you see Haldol or Halperdol, same thing. Haldol is the active ingredient. It is the antipsychotic ingredient in the medication. It is for people with schizophrenia, and it's also used to treat Tourette syndrome. Richard Allen was alleged to have been going crazy. Okay, he was alleged to have been losing his mind. Now, here is the issue I have with the time frame of being given Haldol, is being the same time frame as when he made these confessions, and in the umbrella, just wrong, just the whole bucket of wrong that this situation is that Haldol should not have really been what was given to him for the type of alleged psychosis that he was experiencing. He was diagnosed with stress-induced psychosis. That is not schizophrenia. I understand that Haldol can be administered for other emotional disturbances, but it is an antipsychotic. He was not actually psychotic. His brain chemistry was only being disturbed due to the situation that he was in, the situation being solitary confinement for longer periods of time than is legally allowed, with allegedly the lights on, consistently having the lights on while having threats yelled by other inmates, constantly under threat because it was a crime against a child, which usually is pretty understandable for an inmate. You should be scared when you hurt kids. Other inmates don't like that. They at least target adults with their crimes. How depraved can you be to target children, right? We hate you for that. Anyone who does that. I don't think there's enough evidence to show that Richard Allen did commit the crime against these two innocent young lives. It's it's actually kind of crazy how much evidence there is in a different direction, which isn't allowed to be used at trial, in my opinion, unconstitutionally. That is exculpatory evidence. I truly don't understand why it's not being allowed to be used in trial. I'm pretty sure people with far more legal experience and expertise than I have also uh, expressed the same concern about the inability for Richard Allen to pose a proper defense when it comes to the evidence that the state themselves gathered. It's completely antithetical to how a criminal trial is supposed to proceed. So I I'm sorry that I'm going off on little mini tangents here, but um, Richard Allen was receiving injections of this Haldol. It wasn't the orally administered Haldol. Now there has been different reports that I've seen. I've seen that it can take effect to stop psychosis, like psychotic episodes, as quickly as hours. And that for people who suffer from long-term mental illness, keep that in mind, long-term mental illness, it can take weeks to, cause their delusions, hallucinations, psychotic symptoms to subside. So, when it comes to Richard Allen, who is experiencing a stress-induced psychotic episode, to be given Haldol, it should have worked immediately. He also should have been taken out of the environment causing a stress-induced psychotic episode, should he not? I mean, if keeping him locked in a room for 24 hours a day with the lights on, being screamed at other inmates until he, I guess I'll tell her, the reports are that he was, hitting his own head into the wall and consuming excrement. Okay? That's a psychotic episode. And he has no history of psychosis in his life. He was past the age that he would be presenting with symptoms of schizophrenia very clearly, so much so that it would affect his life. His wife would have seen, they would have seen and known schizophrenia is very specific when it is going to start taking effect and how quickly and rapidly it takes effect in people. So he was past that. He was past being a psychotic, like someone who had a psychotic mental illness. He's past that. He held down a job and was a completely normal person as far as everyone was aware. No history of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, any kind of abuse of others, anything. He just worked at his job and had a life, and no reports of him being anything but a normal person until he was kind of tied into this whole thing. So really, it just seems to me like his psychotic symptoms could have been, easily taken care of by this Haldol, probably as quickly as 1 or 2 injections, and that he would, by all accounts, be moved from the situation he's in or taken better care of so that he does not reach this severe level of mental health. Now, I have done some research on the Indiana penitentiary system here due to this, and it turns out that they have this tricky little thing they like to do called restrictive movement units, which gets them out from under basically the regulations that they have for solitary confinement due to mental health checks and the evaluations that someone has to go to when being subjected to solitary confinement. Okay. Like, this is known by experts that this stuff causes being kept in a box for 22 hours a day and devoid of human contact and only hearing the sounds of the other disturbed individuals around you it's not okay to subject someone to, and there are serious regulations and checks and monitors that have to go into place. So to allow an inmate such as Richard Allen, because by all accounts he was held in solitary confinement, not a restricted movement unit, not one of these tricky things that Indiana does to try and get around this, he was allegedly held in solitary. So he should have been having mental health checks consistently. His mental health should have been made aware of far before smashing his face into a wall and consuming his own body matter. I mean, that is that's why those checks are in place. You can't let someone get there. You should see the signs of mental illness coming before that. Now that is all alleged, right? It's all alleged that he was going crazy. Now, I'm curious because my research into Haldol led me to some interesting facts that if someone wasn't actually psychotic, that Haldol and consistent usage of Haldol in the way that Richard Allen was being given it, someone without a history of mental illness, it can cause psychotic symptoms. It can cause psychosis. Okay, so someone on Haldol who doesn't need it could end up being psychotic. So it gives me a real chicken or the egg situation, since I don't trust anything about this situation. As far as you're telling me that he was going crazy, but also from what I can tell, he has no history of mental illness other than being subjected to what you put him in that solitary. But you're giving him antipsychotic medications, and now the state, here's where it gets really legally dubious. The state wants to use these confessions. Okay, but wasn't he psychotic? He was being treated for psychosis. How can you use in good faith, quote unquote, confessions made while a defendant was under the influence of an antipsychotic medication deemed to have stress-induced psychosis by a prison psychologist, but yet you want to use those confessions as legitimate in a $4 million trial? $4 million, you guys. This trial is costing $4 million, and it is hedged on 60 confessions made by a guy who was being injected with antipsychotic medication at the time, and a bullet with some scratches on it. That's what they have. That bridge video better clearly show Richard Allen's face and be long enough to prove whoever that person on the video was that they want us to believe was Richard Allen actually assaulted the victims. Because what if it is just a little clip and it looks like Richard Allen? They say it's a longer video. I am so curious to know what's on the longer video. Can I clearly see Richard Allen's face? If I can't, and we don't see any actions of violence or the potential beginning of the kidnapping taking place there, then what do they really have? They don't have anything against this particular defendant in a horrific, horrific crime that these victims deserve justice in. Don't think that I want people to get away with this. I do think whoever did this needs to be brought to justice. And I think that the state is really misguided with this case. And now knowing what we know about the prosecutor in this case that was delivered, this information delivered by lawyer Lee last night about how the prosecutor had a civil motion for summary judgment granted against him and his co-conspirators for setting up a doctor so that they could steal his money. You heard that 100% correct. The prosecutor in the Richard Allen case had a civil motion for summary judgment granted for the plaintiff due to this prosecutor collaborating to take down and seize the assets of a doctor under the guise that that doctor was overprescribing opioids. Yes, there's an opioid epidemic in America. You can't freaking work with people to try and take down doctors you think are doing it. You got to get them on the evidence. You have to be a good investigator. Go get the evidence. You don't set people up. It's crazy. So this is the guy bringing these charges against Richard Allen. So this has nothing to do with wanting, anything ill for the family and the victims in this case. It's no disrespect to them. In fact, it's my opinion, it's disrespectful how this is playing out because this isn't justice for anyone. It's truly not. And I mean, you can see it in these photos of Richard Allen. This is the booking photo on the left where he's whisked away from his life, charged with this crime. That's his original photo as he's entering into this legal arena. And he's transferred to Allen County Jail from Wabash County Correctional Facility, the prison where he was subjected to the solitary confinement. You can see his face looks completely different. Not just from lack of, vitamins and minerals and sunlight from prison food and, being kept inside all the time, but it is also the mask-like face. If you see the arrow there, that mask-like face is a symptom of the Haldol, the medication that he was being given. So just, you can see the injustice on his face, right? You can just see that this man looks like he just came out of war. He is shell-shocked. This isn't someone who's, transitioned and accepted their fate, which a lot of people do because they know they're guilty, I know this is a lot to take in. It's mainly a rant. I try to give you some information backing what I'm saying, but at the same time, it feels like we're on the eve of battle, and it feels like it's a hopeless war. Like they've tied the defense's hands, like they knew all along that it was probably something else. And I don't know what came first, like the chicken or the egg type thing. I do truly believe that the FBI was correct when they determined that there was cult symbolism in the crime. We looked into the possible runes left. Everyone was saying there was runes left in the sticks. Made a video because I was trying to decipher what those possibly could be. We checked out the alphabet that these people worship, and we found a pretty interesting message in it. We're no FBI cipher breakers over here, but sometimes when the trail is obvious, you walk right down it. And I took the risk of kind of being maybe considered conspiratorial in a way when I presented the theory that I had found, because people were being mocked heavily for believing that there was any kind of runes or any kind of symbolism at all in the sticks that were placed on top of the bodies of the victims. Now, I think that that is complete deflection, Darvo level deflection when it comes to the sticks. Why? Because those sticks were not bagged as evidence. What were the investigators doing when they showed up and saw the sticks on the girls and just threw them willy-nilly? We don't know where they are. There's no record of where those sticks went. They're not in evidence. They were just strewn about the forest. Are they still there? Who took the sticks? We don't know. We don't know. All we do know is that they weren't dealt with properly. And then when people have questions about the sticks, they're called crazy conspiratorial people, and the sticks were just happenstance. I've seen people say, obviously sticks will fall down. From the time, like, why are sticks and branches just randomly falling everywhere all the time? They weren't, the two victims weren't out there for that long for serious, decay of the foliage around them. And it just so happens that they looked very intentionally placed on top of the girls. But, the investigators, those weren't important. Where'd you put the sticks? I don't know. I thought you grabbed the sticks. Oh, shoot. Yeah, those bloody sticks. Where'd they go? So I'm trying not to think like, oh, the corruption and the, do I have to say possible corruption? I'm sure I guess I have to. The possible corruption and the cult like stuff likely has nothing to do with each other. And I try to be very factual. And then I remind myself that no one bagged the sticks. And I get right back to, well, if the shoe fits, the cultism and the possible corruption just might go hand in hand. Who knows? I can't prove it, but it's very weird that they are coinciding, that there is an FBI report stating that there was definitely cult tendencies, cult symbolism in this crime, but the state police, the locals, want nothing to do with that and got rid of part of the biggest piece of evidence indicating that, possibly. Because I'm just a little paralegal on YouTube, and I was able to pretty quickly find a message in the possible runes that they have said were formed, and it led pretty clearly to some interesting sacrifice type verbiage and actions and like I don't even know what to call these people, like the deer god or whatever of this cult. Like, hello, if it was that obvious, at least to me, then I'm sure the FBI had a very better detailed and factual analysis of what we're just reading in the tea leaves over here as wannabe internet investigators. But where'd they go? Why are they gone? Nothing's right about this case. And the biggest victims, because of that, are the two victims who are not going to get proper justice if the right person is not brought to justice for this crime. Persons or people, because again, they want you to believe that a 5'4" man was able to do this all by himself. Such a long distance and extremely risky crime to perpetrate alone just doesn't make sense. My last little bit of disbelief as to why they only have one person and will not allow alternate defense theories of other suspects is, in my opinion, it is extremely clear that these two young girls were set up for this to happen. They were not at this bridge, but for 30 minutes or less. They were, it was possibly even under 20, and they are gotten. That is not a crime of happenstance. That's not someone who wants to perpetrate this horrible ritualistic type crime and takes an opportunity. This is not a crime of opportunity over here. This is planned. This is set up. This is engineered. The two victims being there in the first place was for this. I guarantee it. They have to have been. This type of crime doesn't happen by happenstance. This kind of crime, especially with the FBI's findings of the cult-like ties, this has to be very well planned. This has to be very well executed. This has to take multiple people, and you have to set up your victim. And you have to set up your victim in the right place. Somewhere like where these two victims were. There was talk about who the two victims in this case were communicating with and who that younger person is tied to. And trial, starts tomorrow, so it does feel pretty helpless from this end right now. For those who have listened, thank you for kind of being a shoulder for me to cry on, an ear to listen to my woes as we go to trial tomorrow in one of the craziest and most unbelievable things I've ever seen in my life. I truly feel like I am in the twilight zone when I think about all the things that have happened in this case. And, I try not to needlessly make content. I'm very careful to respect the genre of, law and how crime and everything kind of coincides, and I want to be respectful of everything that I discuss. I don't want to jump on trends or follow news cycles just because. I am a fan of justice. I'm a fan of truth. I'm a fan of exposing the darkness to some light. That is something I hold very true to myself. Um, and in anything and everything I ever do, that will be my main focus. So when it comes to this Delphi case, it feels very much like someone is putting a stamper down on our flame of justice in this world. It feels lopsided. It feels like, no one is a winner in this situation. And I think $4 million is a hell of a lot of money to put on a trial where your best evidence is 60 plus confessions made while the state was administering medications that could cause psychosis to this person, as well as scratches on a bullet that science doesn't back. You need more than that for me. I'm very curious about the video because the state seems to truly believe it's Richard Allen on that video on one of the victims' phones. That video better, clear as day, show Richard Allen, and clear as day, show Richard Allen following in pursuit or the active kidnapper of the two victims. The clip that's been released to the public that allegedly has more to the clip seems to be, even if it was Richard Allen, not enough to say that that was when and how they got abducted. It doesn't cut it for me. You need to show me that he followed them down the hill. You need to show me that he forced them down the hill. I need to see the weapon. I need to see his face. Because from the witness drawings, the people who were alleged to have been seen at the crime, muddy and bloody, had face masks and, the kind of masks, sort of like a ski mask, but it goes over your, your chin and mouth and the top of your head because it is still cold outside. But by all accounts, it was a warm day. So anyone who was actually out there to commit a crime likely did have those kind of facial things on, which Richard Allen didn't report to have wore. So the only thing they have, the only trick that is possibly up the state's sleeve that we're not going to see coming, is that we clearly see Richard Allen on that video, and it's more than just the little clip of someone saying down the hill. Because who knows what that actual video is or entails or shows. We just see a clip of someone who possibly kind of could look like Richard Allen and possibly says down the hill, girls down the hill. Like, it's given to us by the people that are handling this trial. So who knows how authentic that video truly is. I'm just saying, because that's all they seem to have that they think actually points to Rich Allen, other than him saying he was there himself originally. So all of this to say, I'm nervous for tomorrow. This helped a lot. So, thank you for, even if I don't post this, it was good to just be able to rant about this, I think, because it has been on my mind for quite some time, and it's only been ramping up as we get closer to trial. And I really thought that jury selection would take longer. I've seen longer jury selections with less, for trials with less publicity and less stakes take longer. I'm shocked at how quick this jury selection went for a crime in a trial of this magnitude. But, here we are. We start tomorrow. So, Godspeed to all of Richard Allen's attorneys. And I hope that the prosecutor in this case seriously stubs his toe and has the worst morning he's ever had of his life tomorrow. And yeah, that's just basically how I see it. I mean, I just wish for everything to go wrong for you before you get to court. I hope you're completely flustered and completely thrown off your game. That's the worst I wish on you. But I do wish that on you. So I hope you're completely off your game. I hope you have a horrible night. And I will be praying for Richard Allen's attorneys. So thank you so much if you've made it this far in this video. This is usually where I give my spiel about falling for the Alexia Treviso trial and for things to come. I don't feel it's appropriate. I didn't provide much of anything in this video, and this was honestly a little more therapeutic than anything else for me. I want my feelings on the record about how this is happening. So thank you so much if you made it this far in this video, if you watched this video, and I hope that you can be at peace with what's happening as well. Thank you.